All right. So Zach says, saw this late, so this question problem, okay, blah, blah, blah. On your show about conversion, you guys kept on stating, and my father was on that show as well, you guys kept on stating something to effect that the Bible has nowhere in it that Gentiles became Jews. However, in the book of Esther, it states that the Persians literally became Jews. Now, I do realize some may argue that it was false conversion, etc., but regardless, this, I believe, is an instance that shows that some primitive practice was in place. I will concede that it was probably nothing like what was going on during the Maccabees, first century, and even today, but regardless, that's what came to mind during the show. Responses, either of you?
Yeah, well, I think he's talking about, is it chapter 8, 13 or something like that. It's got the Hebrew word mit-yahadim.
Right.
Mit-yahadim. And so it's from the root yud, he, dalet in hitpael, binyan hitpael, which is often a reflexive or passive. The difficulty here is that this is a hapax. It only occurs here in all the Bible. So we don't really know, and we know that whatever it was because of fear. I read it as they pretended to be Jews to avoid prosecution, and it was a temporary thing. Is
it also possible, Rob, that the meet Yahadim, the Hitpael participle, is it also possible that it simply means they sided with the Jews?
Yeah, something. I think that
because since it's reflexive or oftentimes reflexive, it doesn't have to be. I recognize the Hitpael binyamin could be passive. It is sometimes, but normally it's reflexive. So it's they. The way the English translations say that they made themselves Jews, or something to that effect, and
right. And if you look at the different Bible dictionaries, Hebrew Bible dictionaries, for example, the Halot, Hebrew Aramaic lexicon, has to pose as a Jew.
Right.
But then apparently they refer to the theological workbook of, what do they say, alternatively to embrace Judaism. But that would be totally anachronistic, of course.
Sure.
So it's one of those things. We have it occurring once. We have to look at the context, and it seems that fear was the motivator. Fear of man was the motivator. Fear of attack.
Right.
And so.
Well, the other thing is that if people are trying to refit later rabbinic Judaism back onto Esther, you can't do it yourself. If the verb is reflected,
oh yeah,
right. You can't all of a sudden decide, okay, I'm a Jew. I mean, that's not how the rabbis. No, you had to go according to the much later rabbinic literature. The ceremony of conversion involved a number of different things, including being taught certain things.
But I think I gotta jump in here. I think that Zach actually kind of speaks to this because he says, "I will concede that it was probably nothing like what was going on during the Maccabees or the first century."
So where do you, if you don't take the second, third, the post-destruction rabbinic Judaism in terms of its description of conversion, then where do you find anything about it? So in other words, even the idea that you have some ceremony by which a Gentile is given a legal Jewish status, that occurred in the first century. Now, you have proselytes, I recognize that. You have proselytos, but in the Greek, and it's referred to in the apostolic scriptures. Okay, I recognize that, but we really don't know for certain that the later rabbinic conversion process, as it's laid out, for instance, in the Bavli, in the Babylonian Talmud, I guess what I'm saying in short is we wring our hands asking, is there real historicity in the rabbinic literature or not? When we would have to say there must be some, but how do we find what's history and what's not? let's not forget that one of the primary theses of the rabbis is that all of the oral Torah was given to Moses at Sinai. I mean, how more anachronistic can you get? Everyone recognizes that that wasn't the case, and even the rabbis recognized it wasn't the case, but they said it in order to give the oral Torah equal authority. So just because they said that it was given to Moses, they didn't really think it was given to Moses. They're using that phraseology to say it has authority. So, you know, separating history from whatever you want to call it, made-up history is one of the challenges when we read the rabbinic literature.
I think you just use the Bible, do whatever the hell you like.
Okay, so let's move on now. We have
here, one more point, if I could just make about the Esther 8:13 or 17 or whatever it is that we're given the context has no sniff, no whiff of non-Jews worshiping the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob,
right?
And anywhere near like we see, let's say in Isaiah 56, where it talks about the sons of the foreigners who
attach themselves to the
Nevi'im, use a different type of thing, attach themselves to Hashem. So anyway, good. I'm glad that verse was mentioned because it is one that people often cite. But if we look at the Hebrew and we realize our English translations are sometimes imposing later developments, sadly, and leading the readers astray.